My name is Monique Taylor. I'm a 29-year-old mother of two, born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi. I never thought I'd be the type to have visions, let alone an encounter with Jesus. My life was just regular. Bills, stress, a job I didn't love, and Sunday morning church that I attended more out of tradition than conviction. But everything changed on a rainy night in October. I had just left my second shift at the nursing home. It was nearly midnight, and the roads were slick from a day-long drizzle that hadn't quite let up. I was tired, so tired my eyes kept fluttering shut at stoplights. I remember rubbing them with the back of my hand, trying to keep myself awake, Beyoncé humming through the radio like a distant lullaby. I never saw the truck coming. One minute I was easing through an intersection, and the next there was a blinding light, a screech, and then silence. But not just the kind of silence you get in a wreck. This was deeper, emptier. I couldn't hear the radio, or the storm, or even my heartbeat. In fact, I couldn't feel my body at all. I opened my eyes, or maybe I didn't. I still can't explain how it worked, but I was looking down. Floating. I saw my car crushed like an aluminum can, the roof half caved in. My body slumped against the driver's side door, head tilted unnaturally. There was blood, people running. Someone screamed, "Call 911." But I wasn't panicking. I wasn't even breathing. There was just this calm. Not peace exactly, but a strange stillness, like time had been paused. That's when I heard the voice. Monique. It wasn't loud, but it vibrated through me like thunder rolling in my bones. I turned, or thought I did, and behind me stood a figure wrapped in light. At first, I couldn't look directly at him. It was like staring into the sun, but instead of burning my eyes, it lit up something inside me. I knew without any doubt that I was standing in the presence of Jesus. My knees buckled. Or they would have if I'd had knees in that moment. I felt stripped bare, not ashamed, but completely known. Every sin, every doubt, every time I'd cried myself to sleep believing God had forgotten about me. It was all laid out between us. Yet he didn't accuse me. He didn't ask why I hadn't prayed more, or why I still held anger from the father who left, or why I questioned him when my sister died. Instead, he said, "It's not your time, but you need to see." See what? I asked, not with words, but with a kind of soul language I can't describe. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he extended his hand, and I felt myself being pulled through space faster than thought, like falling through stars. And then we were standing on what looked like a giant plain of light. No sky, no ground, just golden radiance that pulsed like a heartbeat. And in that place, he began to show me things. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing, images flashing too quickly to grasp. Faces, lands, fire, and singing, crying, glory, blood, crowns. Then it all slowed down and I realized I was watching history. My people's history. But not the kind they teach in schools. This wasn't just slavery or marches or speeches. This was before. I saw dark-skinned men and women in flowing robes dancing around pillars of flame, speaking to the heavens in languages older than Hebrew. I saw temples made of gold, not greed. I saw healers, prophets, kings, and queens, all anointed with power I couldn't name. And I wept, because I had never been taught this. Not in church. Not in school. Not even in the whispers of my grandmother's bedtime stories. Jesus looked at me then, and his voice rang out again. They were mine. And they still are. I wanted to speak, wanted to ask how all of this could have been hidden from us, but I couldn't form words in that place. Jesus didn't just hear my thoughts, he felt them. It was as though he answered the question before I could even form it. What was given to them, he said, motioning to the glowing people in my vision, was taken not just with violence, but with deception. Their bodies were chained, but worse, their identity was stolen. The scene shifted again. Now I was watching ships on stormy waters, massive wooden vessels stacked with black bodies, groaning beneath the weight of chains. I saw the Middle Passage, and my chest ached with the cries of mothers ripped from their babies, of men who once led villages now treated like cargo. And still Jesus stood beside me. "This was not my will," he said gently but firmly. "This was man's rebellion empowered by dark forces who feared what they carried." I blinked, and we were in a cotton field. I saw a young girl no older than my daughter, humming a hymn as she picked cotton under the blazing sun. The overseer's shadow loomed behind her, whip in hand. But then something strange happened. As she sang softly, almost under her breath, the air around her shimmered. Her back was bent, her hands bleeding, but heaven moved around her. Angels hovered unseen, drawn by her faith. It wasn't just survival. It was warfare. "She is a priestess," Jesus whispered. "She doesn't know it. But the sound in her soul shakes kingdoms." Tears streamed down my face. I looked at him, heart breaking. "Then why did you let this happen? Why didn't you stop it?" He turned to me, not angry, but sorrowful. "I gave men free will," he said. "And they used it to kill prophets, enslave kings, and silence voices. But I also wove redemption into the bloodline. What the enemy meant for destruction, I have marked for glory." Suddenly, I saw a map of the United States, lit up in glowing red pulses like heartbeats. Cities, neighborhoods, prisons, schools, churches, all glowing. "Your people," he said, "have been under siege not just by systems but by spirits. Spirits of division, of inferiority, of confusion. But the time of awakening has come." Then I saw something that shook me to my core. I saw a mirror. But the reflection wasn't of me. It was of us as a people. We stood tall, eyes clear, garments white with gold stitching. There was fire in our mouths, truth in our hands, and behind us, angels, armies, clouds of witnesses. Then he said something that pierced straight through me. "Many of my children of all nations know my name. But your people, they carry my heartbeat. That is why the enemy fights so hard to erase it." I couldn't stop crying. The weight of centuries pressed against me, but so did the light of something holy, something ancient, something eternal. A truth that had been waiting to rise. And then the vision shifted once more. I was back in present-day America. Street protests, police lights, viral videos, hashtags, anger, pain, numbness. A whole generation tired of praying, tired of waiting, tired of believing that anything would ever change. I turned to Jesus, trembling. "What do we do? How do we fix this?" His eyes, so full of fire and tenderness, locked with mine. "Return to me not just in worship, but in identity. Reclaim what was lost, not through revenge, but through revival." Then he touched my forehead with his hand, and a fire shot through me. Not fire that burned, but fire that revealed. It moved through my memory, through my bones, through my lineage, through time itself. I saw my great-grandmother kneeling beside her bed, praying through clenched teeth after her husband was beaten. I saw my father, who never said he loved me, silently reading Psalms every morning before work. I saw myself growing up ashamed of my own skin, not knowing I was carrying the fire of 1,000 saints. I saw it all, and for the first time in my life, I understood who I was. Not just Monique. I was part of a royal priesthood, a warrior lineage. Chosen. When the fire faded from my vision, I found myself kneeling, though I had no knees, on what looked like a sea of glass. Above me stretched a sky I'd never seen before. It shimmered with colors I don't even have names for, vibrant, living hues that pulsed like the rhythm of a heartbeat. I realized then, this wasn't Earth. This was a place between. Jesus stood beside me, silent now, as I watched new visions rise before me, less like memories and more like warnings. I saw cities crumbling not just physically but spiritually. Churches full of people but devoid of power. Preachers with gold microphones and empty eyes. Communities torn apart not only by bullets and poverty, but by hopelessness. Then I saw something far more terrifying. I saw young men and women, black, white, Latino, Asian, all with blindfolds over their eyes. They were reaching out, hands extended, searching. And walking among them were shadows. Twisted, laughing spirits that whispered lies in their ears. You're not enough. You'll never rise. Your God has forgotten you. Your history doesn't matter. Stay asleep. Stay asleep. I turned to Jesus again, desperate. They don't see it. We don't see it. We're distracted. We're divided. We're exhausted. He nodded. Yes. That is why the time is near. I felt it then, an urgency so great it rattled the core of me. Something was coming. Wave. War. A shift in the unseen world that would split the lukewarm from the burning, the blind from the seeing. Then he said it. Revival will begin in the ones who were overlooked, the rejected, the ridiculed, the broken. Black people. Yes. Black people, he answered, will carry the sound. But the harvest is for all. This move is not about superiority, it's about restoration. The last will be first. The forgotten will be firebrands. And just like that I saw it. A crowd, millions of us gathered in stadiums, fields, streets, deserts. Hands lifted. Voices thunderous. No celebrity preachers. No programs. Just raw, unfiltered worship that cracked the sky open. I saw grandmothers speaking in tongues with fire on their lips. I saw former gang members laying hands on the sick and watching them rise. I saw little children prophesying. I saw old men repenting. I saw pastors washing the feet of addicts. It was messy. It was beautiful. It was unstoppable. He continued. There will be a shaking. Economies, systems, even the church. But through it, a remnant will rise. Bold, broken, baptized in truth. I stood somehow, though I had no body, and faced him. But what do you want from me? He looked at me with a depth of love that melted all the fear in my soul. Tell them what you saw. Who will believe me? Those who are ready. And the ones who mock me. They mocked me too. Tears fell down my face like rivers. I thought of my children, how I'd raise them after this. What I'd teach them. What I'd unteach them. I thought of my people, how we've danced through fire, bled through chains, prayed through silence, and survived everything they said we couldn't. I thought of our songs. Laughter. A rhythm. Our unkillable hope. You mean, I whispered, we were never cursed? He shook his head. You were called. Then the world began to fade. The light dimmed. The stars collapsed inward. And I heard his voice one last time. Wake up. And remember. The next thing I knew, I was coughing on a hospital bed, surrounded by flashing machines and frantic nurses. My head throbbed. My ribs burned. But I was alive. A trauma surgeon later told me I shouldn't have survived. The impact had crushed the driver's side door like tinfoil. The paramedics had lost my pulse twice. I listened politely. Thanked them. But I knew the truth. I hadn't just survived a wreck. I had crossed the veil. I had stood in the presence of the King. And he had told me something I would never forget. That my people weren't abandoned. They were anointed. Recovery was slow. My bones ached. My sleep was filled with strange dreams, and every loud noise made my heart race. But none of that compared to the burden I now carried. I had seen Jesus. I had seen my ancestors dance in glory, then weep under chains. I had felt the fire of forgotten identity burning in my veins. I had seen what was coming, a shaking, a revival, a war for the soul of my people and beyond. And now, I had to speak. At first I tried telling just my sister. I expected her to cry, to feel what I felt. Instead, she stared at me blankly. You sure it wasn't just a dream, Monique? Maybe you hit your head harder than you thought. My pastor was kinder but cautious. We're not to add to the word, sister. Sometimes Satan comes as an angel of light. Even some of my friends, black and church-going, shook their heads. Girl, you always been dramatic. Hurt. Deeply. I started questioning myself. Maybe it was just trauma. A brain trying to protect itself. A hallucination from oxygen loss. But every time I tried to move on, I'd feel it again, that weight in my spirit, that gentle nudge in the night. Then the dreams came. Always the same. Mirror. Choir of voices. A whisper, remember. Eventually I stopped trying to convince everyone. I started writing. I filled pages with the vision. I shared it online, anonymously at first. People began responding. Not everyone believed me, but many did. And some wept. Black women from Georgia. Young men from South Central. Elders from the Caribbean. They wrote things like, I never knew I was royalty. This just broke a curse in my bloodline. I've been hearing the same whisper, wake up. It wasn't about me. Never was. I was just a messenger. And I wasn't alone. Soon I began to notice others, men and women across the country, having similar dreams, similar encounters, all pointing to the same truth. A spiritual awakening was rising from the ashes. And it was starting with the people most crushed by history. It wasn't about superiority. It wasn't about skin. It was about the calling God had placed on a people who had been taught they were less. We weren't less. We were hidden for a time. But not anymore. Months passed. I began speaking in small groups. I told my story to whoever would listen, at libraries, community centers, even barbershops. Sometimes I was laughed at. Sometimes I was mocked. But other times, people fell to their knees. Grown men wept like babies. Teenagers stood in stunned silence. Churches invited me. And then uninvited me when they read what I really had to say. It didn't matter. I wasn't preaching for applause. I was testifying to the truth. And that truth was this. We Black people are not forgotten. We are not cursed. We are not random. We are not broken beyond repair. We are warriors. We are prophets. We are carriers of the sound. We are the heartbeat of revival. Jesus told me himself. I still live in Jackson. Still raise my 2 babies. Still stretch paychecks. Still laugh too loud with my cousins and cry some nights when the memories of the accident creep back in. But I've changed. I know who I am now. I don't flinch when people try to silence me. I don't hide my truth to make others comfortable. I don't let my children grow up thinking they're just statistics or survivors. I tell them they're chosen. That they come from a line of kings and prophets and healers. That their skin is not a burden, it's a banner. That their soul was designed to sing a song hell is terrified of. And when the days feel dark, when I see the news, when I feel the tremble of chaos rising, I remember his final words to me. Wake up. And remember. So I do. And I won't stop telling this story. Because maybe someone reading it right now, someone tired, someone searching, someone who thinks God doesn't see them, maybe they're the next voice he's calling. Maybe you are. So hear me now. He's not done with us. He never was. And the greatest move of God the world has ever seen. It's already begun.